Here we go. Let's see what we can do. And goodbye. Yeah. Yo. Yeah.
I can't do that yet. I need more time.
Well, boys, I think the build is working real well. What is going on, my fellow nerds? Operator Otter here, and today we're going to be going over a build I call the Bug-Zapper Sorc, which is just a lightning Sorc build that is designed for mapping and very thematic, so that's what we're going to do. Now, this is specifically stage 3 of a 5-stage build. Yesterday I released a video that went over stage 1 and stage 2, so let's go ahead and do a recap about that. What is stage 1? Stage 1 is just the campaign of the game, and all you need are specific gems with some support gems. It will literally carry you all the way through the campaign. What are those gems? Well, that is going to be Arc with Unleash and Wild Words, Orb of Storms with Overabundance, and Mana Tempest. Those right there will carry you all the way through the campaign. Everything else is fluff, but you can beat the campaign with just that. No other gear requirements, nothing. That's it, you will beat the campaign. Now, what is Stage 2? Stage 2 is when we start getting into early mapping, and we're going to have a little bit different things in the requirements that we have for that build. For the gems, we're going to start adding things like our Elemental Weakness Curse and our Siphon Elements to create more infusions, to drop those resistances into the negative. We're going to start amping our damage with those multipliers. As well, when it comes to the gear, we need to start focusing on defense. We really want to max out these resistances. The reason being is that when you're mapping and you die, you lose 10% of your XP. We don't want to lose XP, we want to level up. So we want to fix that problem by fixing our defenses. Make sure you don't die, and you get XP, you get more powerful. Easy math. Offensively, what we want to do with our gear is really focus on spell levels in our weapons and in our amulet. Now, you can go for a wand and focus that is actually technically better than a staff, but they're a lot more expensive, and you can still get a lot of bang with your buck with a staff, especially with the buffs that they've given staffs this Steven. Just try to get those spell levels because that is exponential damage. Now, when it comes to our passive tree in stage 3, we're really focusing on raw damage. So things like this part of the tree, 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 those things that are just giving us that raw spell damage. And the reason being is because we just don't have enough crit hit chance and enough points and enough crit hit damage to really support going into a crit based build. So we're just trying to go for that raw damage. And that was basically the idea of stage 2. Now let's get into stage 3. For stage 3, when it comes to our gear requirements, we're going to be wanting to focus on the amount of energy shield that we have, as long as still maintaining these defensive resistances. That amount in our energy shield is 4,000. Once we get to 4,000, we now have permission to run Chaos Inoculation, which is, in my humble opinion, the most busted key node in the game. It takes away the type of damage that would otherwise do double damage to your energy shield. If you didn't know, Chaos and Poison damage. Poison is Chaos damage, but Chaos, purple stuff, and green stuff deals double damage to your energy shield, which is really rough. And when you're not focusing on any of the resistances here and you don't have anything here, this actually means that chaos damage and poison damage are actually doing 8 times more damage to you than what any other source of damage would do if you have it maxed out on resistances. It really sucks. At the same time, it also makes you immune to bleeding, which actually bypasses our energy shield, and because we are intelligence wearers, we don't have a lot of life, so bleeding really hurts, but we are now immune to it. This is a very, very powerful node, but we need to have not only enough energy shield, but we need to have enough recharge rate and the start of the recharge rate, as well as stun threshold. Now, why is stun threshold important? Well, stun threshold is actually based on your life, not your total life plus your energy shield. So when your life is 1, any hit that you get hit by on the monsters, you are going to get stunned. And when you get stun locked as a caster, you're dead. The end. So what we can do is we can go ahead and grab these nodes, which is going to make it so that our stun threshold is actually equivalent to a percentage of our maximum energy shield, which is going to allow us to actually take a couple hits before we actually get stunned. Very important defensive threshold for stage 3. For the offensive part of the build, the very first thing that we need to get before we talk about anything else is going to be Maligaro's Virtuosity Fine Bracers. What these do is they actually set your critical damage bonus to 250% after everything else is calculated. So for example, pinpoint critical, which gives us 30% less critical damage bonus. Doesn't matter because that happens first, and then at the very end of everything, Maligaro just says your crit damage is 250%. The end. And if we can confirm that by looking right here, you can actually look at the crit hit damage that's going to be happening, and it will say 250%. So no matter what, even if I take this off, on, it is 250% the end. So what does that allow us to do? This actually now allows us to completely build in our passive tree all of this crit, as well as all of the crit that we need in our build. We got crit here, we got crit here. We're trying to build as much critical hit chance. And because of this, we can now get to a point where the critical hit chance of our spells can bypass 60%. And when you actually get to the best part of this build, it will be about 80% crit hit chance plus, which turns this into a crit monster build. Very, very strong. But we need those gloves. These gloves are very important, and they are kind of expensive. If you go ahead and look right here and search, you'll see that they're worth about half a divine orb. Not too bad, but you want to grab those as quickly as possible because they are the base foundation for shifting into stage 3 when it comes to the offensive power part. Now, before we go into talking about any of the other offensive stats, I want to talk about a problem that you're going to run into when you actually get these gloves and a way that you can fix it. So, let's say you just bought the gloves. You'll have noticed that you can't wear them because they require 57 dex. Well, I only have 42. So let's go ahead and give myself a next dexterity in order to wear these gloves. So I'm going to go to Dariani, I'm going to refund some passives, and go ahead and give myself a next dexterity to do this. So let's go ahead and watch dexterity, but when I do this, I also want you to watch what happens to my spells. Okay, I have enough dexterity, but now my spells have disappeared. I can wear the gloves, but there's a problem. My spells actually require more intelligence to actually equip because they're so high level. So now we're in a problem, because I need enough dexterity to wear the gloves, I also need enough intelligence to even use the spells. So what do I do? Well, this is going to be a cool trick. If you take the gloves and you put them on, you'll notice that they actually give dexterity. So I'm going to go ahead and put them on, watch my dexterity. I am now at 73. Well, now I can go back after I put them on and rechange these back into intelligence. And now I have enough dexterity to wear them, and now I actually have enough intelligence to now actually equip the spells, and now we're good to go. It's a cool trick, but it's a problem you're going to run into, and I just want to show you how to solve that. Now that we know how to equip Maligaros, and we understand how its critical damage bonus unique passive functions, the next stat that we want to stack is obviously going to be critical hit chance, which we can get in our helmet, our amulet, and our weapon. My weapon doesn't have critical hit chance, feels bad, man. That's definitely the stat we want to prioritize if we could. In our passive tree, we're going to be taking all of that spell damage that we had from stage 2 and converting it into critical hit chance. Critical hit chance here, 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 and here. Now, if you didn't know how critical hit chance works in Path of Exile 2, let's talk about it. Let's go to my handy tool, Excel. Now let's imagine that the base spell has 10% crit hit chance. This is the base crit of the spell. How do we know what the base crit of the spell is? Well, if we go here, we look, you can see the critical hit chance is 9%. We're going to use 10% just because it's mathematically easier to kind of formulate in our heads and to be able to envision. Now let's say that we get a piece of gear that gives us 10% critical hit chance. Is our crit for this spell 20% now? It is not. The way it works is that it's giving a percentage of critical hit chance to the percentage of the base crit. So it's 10% of 10%. Well, that's just 1%. And so basically the math is that for every 10% of critical hit chance that we give, we're going to get 1% to the spell. And it just adds up. And essentially what happens is we want to be able to get to something like 300% critical hit chance. And when we stack all that up, that's just the equivalent of giving us 30% critical hit chance to our spell. So now our spell is 40% critical hit chance. Now once this happens, we want to equip the pinpoint critical node. This says that it gives us 60% more critical hit chance. More, in Path of Exile, is a multiplier. Increased is additive. So more just means we take 1.6. So if we take 40% and we multiply it by 1.6, this now means that we have 64% critical hit chance. And if we look in the game right now, we can see that I have 60%. Now the base crit is 9%, so 60% is really close to that. So I have about 300% bonus critical hit chance in my gear, and as we get higher, that's how that works. So that's how we're able to get our crit hit chance as high as possible, and why we want to stack it as much as we can. The last stat that we want to prioritize for stage 3 is going to be cast speed, which we can find in our rings, our amulet, and our weapon, as well as a couple points in our passive tree. Now, why is cast speed important? Well, that's because you're playing a Sorc, and a Sorc is a combo-based class. We are not Lightning Arrow, we are not Lightning Spear, we cannot press one button and clear the entire screen, which may be fun for some people, but for people like me, I do not like that. I get very bored very quickly. I like combos, I like having to think, I like having to be interactive with my class to actually deal damage. The problem with this is that Path of Exile likes to punish that style because there's a bunch of monsters that are rushing you down, and if they hit you, they stun lock you, and you're dead. So how do you beat that? You just gotta cast your spells fast enough. And you're gonna need to cast a lot of spells. And in stage 3, we have a lot of spells that we need to cast. So when we come up to an elite, we need to be able to do things like Exposure, Curse, Orb, Tempest, Arc with Unleash, and then do our Spark to be able to actually blow up that elite. But we need to be able to do it very, very quickly. Something like this. That will blow up the entire screen along with the elite. And if you do it correctly, it's going to be very rewarding. But if you don't do it correctly, or you don't have the cast speed, you're going to die. That's just how it is. Take it or leave it. Now, as for every single support gem choice that we have here, I'm actually not going to go into too much detail here, because I'm going to be making another video that actually goes along with all of the math and why all of this is important. I don't want this video to be 20 minutes long. I just want you to be able to understand what you need to go for in your gear and why we're doing it that way, and then just put those spell gems on, and we need to do specific combos. Those combos have already really been talked about. You got your basic bread and butter one, which is your Orbistorm's Tempest Arc. That's going to be your bread and butter. If you really want to be able to get that lightning infusion every single time, just understand that when you cast your Orbistorms through your Tempest, your Unleashed Arc, and then 2 of your Sparks, it leaves that lightning infusion, and you can actually just keep doing that. So here's the lightning infusion, watch. 1, 2, it disappears, lightning infusion. Lightning infusion. And every single time that lightning infusion up, that arc is going to do big damage. That's kind of how you rotate through the map. Make sure that when you're coming to elites, that you're using Frost Bomb to put that exposure on them. And then make sure that you're using your elemental weakness to actually reduce those resistances so that you can just blow up that elite. And when you're against the boss, or you're in specific areas like Ritual or those Abyss areas, and you have those elites that are about to spawn out of the Abyss, that you're actually putting down your Sigil of Power and you're utilizing it. Because Sigil of Power is going to increase your damage by a factor of 2, and will make it a much safer part by basically creating the best defense is the best offense. And that's essentially how the build plays out. Stage 4 will be coming out pretty soon, and if you understand where the direction of this build is going, you could probably guess as to where we're going with it. But I hope you enjoyed the video, hope this brings light to you, and I hope you have something to work for. I'll see you guys soon. Have a good self, a wonderful day.